happy to see what you represent in education and in the industry, because like representation is really important.
It is.
You know, in both my worlds, in music and in construction, it's like the representation really shapes whether a mind thinks that they can fit in the space.
Absolutely.
You know, if young people see themselves in that, there's room for me.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
So I'm excited to see that you've been that.
Yes,
You know?
yes, that has been a goal, and just being able to kind of on both sides, being exposed to it, but also seeing the lack thereof and saying that's my goal, is to get in those spaces where we're not seen or where we're not visible, and to say, hey, we're here. Definitely.
I love it.
Definitely.
I was just really good at trying. My parents were really into like pushing us to just try, explore, just see if you like it, just taste that, just, you know, that kind of thing. And so I think I got good at learning how to learn. And so it just became adaptive. And so after I graduated from Kashmir, I went to Howard. And, you know, I would say like life is upbeats and downbeats, right? And so, and this because we're talking about the students, you know, a lot of times life is happening and they're trying to figure out how to maneuver through what's happening in the midst of what they're pursuing. But a month before I graduated from Kashmir, my mom actually passed away. And so it was really jolting, really just like, what just happened. You know? And so I'd gone on these college tours, and even though, you know, in Texas, if you're valedictorian, you can go anywhere for free. And so all the scholarships I would have pocketed. I would have probably bought a house, you know, then. But it was good for me and important for me to just find myself, find my center. And so Howard ended up being the place that I wanted to go to, and I got student loans. But it was still like, I had scholarships, but like when you look at the value that you can get out of life or get in life, it was more valuable to find balance than it was to just have money.
Absolutely.
You know, so that's something I had to deal with early on. And I know a lot of the students here, you know, and a lot of students, you know, are toggling between, you know, the likes or the acceptance or or money, you know, even in work, you know. So that was my experience there, because I always like to share that it's not always glitz and glam. There are other things that are happening in the midst of it, and you have to just maneuver through it. So did that, went to Howard, studied music, changed my major to music. I was kind of in information systems, but I went from, I guess, April, my mom transitioning, in May I graduated, in June I was in DC. Just, you know, trying to get the summer session and just get acclimated and find this music. And I was on the dive team at Howard.
Good.
And then went into marching band rehearsal. I was already doing marching band, concert band, and jazz band in high school. But once you get in marching band in college, particularly at HBCU, then it's like a full commitment.
Absolutely.
So I was in the music department a lot. And I was like, okay, music, this can really be a thing to kind of sustain me. And by my sophomore year, I was section leader. I was the first female section leader of the drum department, drum captain at Howard. And then went on, you know, playing orchestra. I graduated from Howard and moved to Los Angeles and just started gigging and networking. I'll share this one thing too that I think is important for students to know. But when I was at Howard, I would go to lunch with my jazz band director, you know, my professors, and just, they would have different alum that were in town playing at the Kennedy Center or whatever. And I just wanted to be like the flyer. Right? What is the industry? What is that like, you know? And so fast forward to deciding to move to LA after another rejection. I thought I was going to go to Juilliard, and I didn't get in this program or whatever. And so I said, well, I'm not ready to go home. Home will always be there.
Absolutely.
You know? And I wasn't recording enough to be in Nashville, and Atlanta wasn't as involved as it is now. So I said, okay, I built some relationships in Los Angeles. So my first night in Los Angeles, I said, okay, I'm getting the newspaper, I'm getting the LA Weekly, I'm gonna meet people, I'm gonna, you know, network and play different styles. I'm going to jam sessions. So I went to what I thought was a jam session on a Sunday. And it wasn't. It was just a band playing. There wasn't a lot of people in the audience, and I was just like, I'm gonna just make the best of this. Right? And so on the break, the band took a break, and this guy comes up to me. Now, you know, people are always like, be careful in LA.
Yes.
You know, so this guy comes up to me and says he knows me. And I'm like, I literally just got there earlier that day, you know. So
Right.
this is what they're talking about, like, just be careful, right? And he's like, still talking and talking. He's like, no, we went to lunch. Fred Irby.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, you know. So we're talking, and he asked what I wanted to do, and I always want to give back. So I was like, I want to teach, but I want to tour, I want to travel, and that sort of thing. So his group came, and it was time for them to go back up. And so he said, well, go play.
Yeah. Man, that's amazing.
You know?
Yeah.
So I went to play, and then from that night, and that guy's from Houston. His name is Len Richards. He's from Houston. But from that night, I got a call to do a gig. I got a call that Tuesday to do a gig at somebody who named Alma Kay. I didn't know who that was. But I was like, yeah, I'll do it first week. Yeah, like, and it wasn't Alma. It was Al McKay, who's the founding member of Earth, Wind & Fire.
Yes.
And I played with that guy for 3 years from that, but from sitting with my professors, you know.
Exactly.
So, and that, you know, it's like the importance of like that mentorship, internship, connection, and just absorbing the information, you know. So I went on and, you know, did other great things and met amazing people, but it's always hinged on relationships.
Exactly.
So, you know.
Exactly. I think my question for you too is a couple of things. Is just thinking about that sparked my thought was, number one, just what drove your passion for music, and also you choosing to go to an HBCU. So I know that within community college, we have the opportunity for students to transition into Prairie View, which is my alma mater, but just really what was the guide for you when it comes to selecting that, and then how did that basically nurture your gift?
The driving inspiration for me is just self-competition.
Okay.
I'm very much a Virgo. I'm very
okay.
You know, I love it. I love
Yes.
I'm, you know, in pursuit of perfection. So I've always had that competitive drive. And early on, I did sports that were like really self-markers, right? Like swimming and diving. That is a personal practice.
Yes.
And then you take that personal practice and you display it and hopefully get a 10. You know, but I can only swim as fast as I keep prepping my lungs to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I've always had that sort of self-drive, you know, of competition. Competition is cool. But I'm not necessarily in competition with people.
It's developing yourself. Yeah. That's
so
awesome.
that's always been
that's
like,
good.
I want to beat my score or beat my, you know, my time or beat whatever. And then if I look up and care about the people around me, then I'm like, oh, cool.
Right.
You know, valedictorian. Oh, okay, cool.
Right.
But really, I was like, okay, how can I get the highest grade? How can I? Oh, let me get an honors classes, because then even if I get a B, then on 4 points, I'm on 5 points. Like, it was that kind of thing. Like, how can I position myself? Right? Yes. And then choosing to go to Howard, like my sister Jeannie and I, we went on an HBCU tour.
Okay.
And because my grandparents, like, were educators, my grandfather actually taught drafting.
Really?
Yeah, and I learned this later in my adult life, but my grandfather taught drafting at Texas Southern.
Awesome.
You know, so I grew up with graph paper, like sketching graph paper, and drawing mazes and stuff like that. Like actually I designed a roller coaster at one point.
Oh, wow.
Like just, because that's just how my brain worked. But that's what I was kind of quietly exposed to, not really even think anything of it. You know? And then my grandmother taught at Will Rogers, and so they were very much about education and that sort of thing. But they were pillars in the community.
Correct.
And so I saw Black excellence within my family. My grandfather was also the first Black president of the Realtors Association. You know, so that leadership was there, and it wasn't an arrogant thing. It wasn't, but I saw it within, you know, the family. So it felt comfortable to then pursue, you know, higher education in an environment that looked like me.
Exactly.
You know, and then I didn't feel like I had to try to fit in. And there's enough world. We traveled too, so we saw the world enough that we weren't just completely like sheltered to other cultures, and other cultures did business with us, you know. But I saw what looked like me, you know. And so, and Howard is the first HBCU, and it was just like, okay, you know what I mean?
A lot of it's just
so
a lot of foundation there.
Yeah, it worked, and I'm super, super glad that that's where I went.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have even gauged that
Yeah.
had life not happened in the way that it did.
Absolutely.
You know, but that's what drew me
I love
to the HBCU space.
I love that. That's so good. And you saying like how you had just someone to look up to, like your grandparents, and just their influence and some of the different elements that things that they instilled in you. That's a lot. And I think for my background, it's from a different perspective. It's the opposite side. It's where not having those examples, it's like, well, I'm going to work so that when I do have children, I'll be able to provide them that visual representation so that they can pursue higher education, so that they can pursue going beyond what more than what we did. And so my background, and we'll go to childhood, I was single mom, single parent until she remarried, but single parent home. I was always by myself a lot. And so when you're a kid by yourself, you turn on PBS and who's there? Bob Ross, right? So here, I learned how to I learned through like visibly seeing someone do something, and I'm like, I can do that. So I would just try it and it would just happen. I'm like, that's a gift, right? So something's there. And so it also went into like playing with dolls. I didn't really like dolls a lot, but everybody, you're a little girl. Right, they buy you Barbie dolls. Right. So I'm like, I'm gonna chop off their hair and I'm gonna change their outfit and I'm gonna cut up my socks and design, some clothes and change their whole outlook. But that was the thing. I utilized that time and became a super just creative. I love creativity. I love using my hands. And so from there, my goal in life was to become an artist, right? On an individual artist, like to paint and to draw and just like, I'm like travel the world. That was like my thing. And, but then you always hear, well, artists aren't famous until they die. That was what I was told as a little kid. I'm like, well, I don't want that life, right? Like, I gotta make some money. So growing up, I was like, okay, well, what can I do? And so fast forwarding, my mom and I ended up having to move to Texas the middle of my senior year, which was a blessing in disguise. She separated from my stepdad, and just life happened. It was not a really great upbringing, but from there I was able to get exposed to the South, which
your hometown is
so military. It went from Colorado to California. We lived in Arizona for a while, so kind of traveled a lot, but primarily raised in California, so I can totally relate. Yeah, so I was like, everything you said, the swimming, that I was like, yes, I could totally, like, we have so many connections. Yeah. But it was when we moved here, number one, just the warmth of the South. Just the acceptance that we received and the kindness and just the exposure, because very cultural, like all kinds of cultures. My high school, it was like a melting pot. And so I desired to go to HBCU because I wanted to be around my people. Like, I didn't have a lot of that. And so when I chose to go to Prairie View, I just remember the first day I was like trying to follow in my brother's footsteps, going into engineering, and I struggled with math. And so I was like, like I saw the math classes I had to take. I was like, that's not gonna be for me. What's upstairs? And they were like, that's architecture. And literally walked up the stairs and fell in love. And from there, it was like, it took that artistry to being able to take the things that I loved, like building, and not just building with my hands, but also building people up, creating spaces where people can thrive, where people are influenced and empowered. Like, I was like, they have like real life, like I could do this. Yeah. And so from there, had that opportunity, I took the extended route of college, in 7 years of school, but had the opportunity, and like you, go-getter. I remember my first internship, the firm that I ended up working for, they were there. They were at they had vendors come in, and I had my resume and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go for it. Now, mind you, I'm a shy kid, very introverted and just like seen but not heard. Yeah. And I said, I'm gonna pursue this because I have to. Like, I don't have a choice. This is it. And if I have to reach this goal, we gotta get there. Yeah. So went up to the gentleman and introduced myself. We had really great dialogue. And then I remember going into the computer lab, typing up a thank you email to him saying thank you for just meeting with me and talking with me. And I said, you know, whatever happens from this, have your way. Like, I don't know, but I wasn't even looking for an internship. I just wanted the networking experience. Yeah. And of course, my professors were really good. Like, they pushed me, Professor Norwood, he pushed me to pursue, you know, like that level of excellence. Like, you show up how you want to be seen and how you want to be treated. So I was like, okay, I got to go get this. Mm-hmm. And about a week later, he called me and it was like, what? Like, you know, and from that too, I said, well, I got some friends how many openings do you have? So I got these 2 friends. Yeah. And from there, I'm pulling people with me. I'm like, I have my 2 friends. They ended up interning that summer. Nice. And even through that, so we talk about adversity and I haven't even shared this, but found out I was pregnant. Oh, wow. And I was like, man, like my life changed. And I said, well, I'm still gonna do this. I'm still gonna pursue this. And through all that, I think that was the motivation, knowing that I had to create a legacy. I had to make sure that I did this because not only was I trying to create a legacy, breaking generational curses, like doing all this, I had to pull him with me. And he was there all the way, you know, in the studio. And so from that, I'll say this, career-wise, that I got the internship. I designed, helped with interning and designing some of the local schools here. So educational facilities in Alvin, Klein ISD, Farmers Branch, where else were we? We were all over the place. And then of course, the second Great Depression happened and got laid off. And I pursued custom residential design. So I ended up going into that. And that was something that I always wanted to do, but just again, when you don't have exposure and you don't have anybody feeding into those dreams, you're like, well, how do I get there? And so I'm a forerunner. That's just how, for my family. So being a forerunner, I said, okay, I want to design homes. How do I get there? And I will say every experience or every situation walking into what I've in my life, so to speak, it's always been about someone who I knew. So connections, that networking. And I had a friend who worked at the firm, Main Street America, off of 45. He worked at Design Tech Homes, and he said, hey, do you want to come work and design homes? I was like, what? Yes, like absolutely. Because at the time, in between, you know, getting laid off, I was working at Bath and Body Works, like slinging lotions. So it was like, hey, but it built my marketing skill. I was a brand manager, so I was able to design floor plan. I was able to still use my gifts, but at a different level, and it helped prepare me for now as well. So went through that, worked there, and then started multiplying, having kids, you know, got married, having kids, and my schedule was it was heavy. So again, got another opportunity with someone that I actually used to visit. A friend of mine who I went to school with at Prairie View invited me several times to come speak to his students at the school I would end up teaching at. And I always remember that in my life, I've always seen or have noticed a pattern that he shows you where you're going before you get there. And there's always someone who's gone before you who will pull you in. That's how I ended up here, same thing. And so from that, ended up teaching architecture. So I went from designing to actually teaching. And I always had, like you, a desire to give back, but again, just didn't know how. And so it just so happened, like everything that was a desire in my heart, it was already set up to happen, and not necessarily thinking about it at the time because life is going, it's like happening. And so ended up teaching it and just fell in love with that. And I'm like, I get to do it, but then I can also teach and pay it forward. And so now being here, I used to always hear my students say that when they got to colleges or large universities like A&M with these scholarships. I had one student who was at A&M on a soccer scholarship and ended up leaving because there was no one there that looked like him or no one he could connect to. I started to hear that consistently for students who were getting that we were getting into these big schools and they were coming back. And so I said, well, how do we eliminate that? coming here to Lone Star, I said, I have to be a conduit, I have to be a pipeline. And that if I'm just that gateway to get them in, be a familiar face because they know I understand their demographics, I understand where they've come from, allowing that to just be my place and to also do what I love and expose them to amazing things like this, I'm like, I want to be that person and I know I can. And so again, being a forerunner, coming here, same thing. You're building a program. You're not only that, I tell my students, I'm a forever learner. So building a program, what I learned, the beautiful thing about what I learned is they've taught me so much. They've taught me how to teach, how to kind of bring them in. And I'm constantly going to them, okay, well, what do you think about this? Or how could I draw more students in? Like, what can we do? And so they were like, just being genuine, being authentic, like who you are is really important. And that's what students look for. And so that's kind of like my career in a nutshell. It's so many in-betweens, but that's just my story and how I got here. And again, it was a hand reaching out, a young lady I went to high school with. She was the VP here and just reached out and said, hey, you want to come work for Lone Star? And I was like, I took a chance because it was a dream. I said, absolutely. Don't know what I'm doing, but I had a dream and I'm going for it. And I ended up here, and then it's just been amazing. A lot of growing, a lot of growth happening, but I feel like anytime there's growth, and I try to share that with my students as well, anytime you're growing, it may not be perfect, but anytime you're growing and you see kind of like the fruit or the blossoms coming up, you know you're making a difference and you're doing something, it's happening. So yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it, that's amazing.
Yes, thank you,
Yeah,
thank
lots
you.
of parallels. Okay, before we, I was gonna say, do y'all need a break? Are y'all good? Talk about outdated mentalities that you face and being a woman in the dominated wherever y'all want to go with that first.
So outdated mentalities in the industry, going into the industry, kind of already having a family. It was like you automatically were introduced to that glass ceiling. And it was like, you're here, but and it was just inferring, like, because you have a family, because you have children, can you really commit to this life? Can you commit to being focused on doing what we're asking you to do and the hours and just, you know, all that? And so having that, it was one thing. And then of course, being a young female minority, I would walk into the room and be the only one. And it was intimidating. And it was constantly having to demand, earn, fight for respect, to really, and not in an aggressive way, because you know, you hear about the angry black woman, like, but I always took an approach of grace, because if you can charm them, you know, you learn a lot. If you first listen, you walk in the room and you just listen, you observe, but learning how they speak, how they flow, then that's where you get in and you're able, it's like chess. You learn the game and you know how to navigate. And so I had to not just break their idea of being young African-American woman in the industry and what that looked like. I had to educate them. And in not necessarily saying it, but just showing. I had to show. I was like the show me girl, you know? And so a lot of times by doing that, I became like the token. It was like, hey, we have this amazing young woman. And when I would walk into the meetings, you would see, you were like, oh, you know, the change, but then I have something to offer, you know, and they weren't expecting
that introduction to look like you. To lead
yeah. So that was a lot of what I've experienced, but I've also, on the other side of it, have been fortunate enough to have men who believed in women being in the industry, who were really, really passionate about opening up that door for us. And so from my professors to even the men that I worked with in the industry, even now, my husband, he's in the industry, and he comes home and he has an all-female construction crew. Wow. And he always sends me pictures of them. And he's like today when I was coming in, he's like, man, they're working faster than my guys. He's like, you know, and so just to hear that, it makes you proud. Like, we bring bring it. Like when we show up,
Definitely.
it's our creativity, and it's just, we bring something to the industry that men just don't have. You know, we're nurturers, but with that gift, we're able to know how to speak to different things that occur in the industry. We see from a different lens and a different perspective, and we take that and we build. We're naturally, we give birth to things, but we also build. That's what we're created to do. And so, you know, they plant the seed, we birth it, and we build. We raise it, you know? And so I take that, thinking about the industry, and what I've experienced, a lot of prejudice, you know, when it comes to just their understanding, and a lot of sometimes even ridicule because I was young. When I first got into the industry, I was 23 years old, and the gentleman who hired me, the whole panel of interviewers were Caucasian males, well over their 50s, and it's like, you know, I was even surprised I got an opportunity, but coming in, you know, thankfully they saw something, you know, and that drive. And even if I told them, I said, even if you tell me no, I'm gonna try again. I'm gonna go somewhere because I know this is what I'm supposed to do. And so just having to deal with that, but also being fortunate enough, I had a great balance where there were some mentors who were like, keep pursuing, keep going, and this is how you can get in those spaces and how to speak, you know, to those things, to elevate and to move beyond some of those stigmas. So,
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
It's been a journey. It's still a journey.
Wow,
But
of course.
But grace and humility is just been a thing because it's like it helps you to, you know, navigate through it. Yeah.
You were excellent, obviously, because there has to be a level of excellence for you to stay in the room. Somebody can invite you to the room, you can knock on the door.
Yeah.
But if you don't have what it takes to maintain your presence in the room, then it's a matter of time before you're just not there anymore.
Exactly.
So that even speaks volumes. And I think for me, you know, that has been the infrastructure, 2 doors opening for me. One of the other things that I realize now is the importance of my dad's cheering me on, my dad's voice and my grandfather's voice. And, you know, both, you know, the genders have place and purpose.
Yes,
for
they
different
do.
reasons, you know, not one being better than the other, but at different times for different reasons.
Yeah.
One resonates more than another, you know. And so when I was competing, you know, with myself in this race with other people, then my dad was at the sidelines. My dad, you know, we had a swimming pool in our backyard, and my mother was a diver. You know, I learned in this newspaper clipping that she actually wanted to go to the Olympics. You know, so I'm just like, wow. So even that drives for someone, and I didn't know that as a child, you know, but for someone who wants to pursue life, if your mom is competitive, if your mom knows what it takes to get to that next level, or your dad is saying, or whatever, those presents matter.
They do.
So for me, hearing the male voice from my father saying, go, try, explore, do, that was really like all I needed.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And then as I got in these environments, I could still hear, even though both of them aren't with me now, I still hear the voice. I still hear the champion. And even when things get like really rough, I'm like, I'm proud of you kidding me. Like, you know, it's just like, okay, take a break. Or come back in and get back in the race and that sort of thing, you know. But excellence being at the infrastructure forefront of you, and being, for us to be in worlds that are male dominated, you know, or that are culturally dominated, outside of our culture, outside of our, it's not a race, but, you know, outside of our melanin spectrum,
correct,
whatever you want to call it, right? But, you know, in my world, it's been, in both music and construction, it's been about excellence.
Absolutely.
For me, and that is what makes the guys go, oh man, you know, or makes people who are twice your seniors say, huh, we never thought about that, you know? I'm doing a commercial project in Delaware, and my architectural partner there was just like, man, I had to present your drawings to my team.
Yeah.
Because the way you're playing with shipping containers, like we just never thought about
Absolutely.
it. It's like thinking outside the box, but thinking with the box that way.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
And so, but that, if the mind is closed, then it misses so much.
Yeah.
And if the mind is closed because of gender, then it really misses a lot.
Yeah.
And I think about Viola Davis with
Yes.
the Woman King, right?
Yes.
And we're like Women King, right?
Yes.
And Black Panther and Wakanda. It's like the women were the warriors. They were the strategists. They, and when you take it and you understand the science of it, because the way we're wired as women, the science also speaks to whether something can excel, right?
Yes.
There's an awareness as women, I think, like once we go past puberty, every month we're preparing. Every month we're strategizing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Every month. So even forward thinking to say, I can anticipate that that's about to fall. Like it's just we're wired that way.
Yeah.
And if you connect, like you were saying, your husband, if as a male you recognize that not as an issue but as a strength. That's like your superpower.
Absolutely.
To be guided by the moon. I mean, like you know what I mean? Like that's a superpower to feel intuitively whether people energetically are going to serve the space well or whether somebody feels good and like this could work. No, I think it's something. Like, do you remember when she said that? And it's like, a guy might be like, but a woman would be like, no,
there was something
that was
there.
key.
Yeah,
there's something there, right? And then that becomes like very pivotal to whether you think that they could just work and expand with you now.
Yeah.
So, being in the world, it has allowed me to the world of music, in the male-dominated world. It's just allowed me to take that confidence and take, the excellence and then make a difference in those spaces and then eventually become a leader. Like,
absolutely.
But I started playing the drums in 9th grade. About sophomore year, I was a section leader.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then because I'd been exposed to so much, then I was just used to adjusting.
Yeah.
And so I get to Howard in about second year I'm in this space. And, I competed in a national guitar center drumming competition, right? And the humility, I think, is significant too because, as a woman, you really do have to be 3 and 4 times better.
Yep.
Knowledgeable, only to sit at the table.
Yeah.
And you really should not only on the table, but the room and the building. And,
Yep.
right?
Yes.
If we were to put the skill sets next to each other.
Absolutely.
Right? But instead, you're welcome to the table, but.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Seen, not heard. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you said that. So, going into this drumming competition, I was actually in LA and I would just skate. I had an oil leak when I was at Howard, so when I moved to LA, my card, oil is important.
Yes.
Oil is important.
Yes.
But my card just stopped working.
Okay.
So I would skate when I moved to LA. I was doing these gigs, right?
Yeah.
First week.
Yeah.
But I would skate to the bus stop.
Yeah.
I have my little KT,
Yeah.
skate, go to Hertz rental car.
Yes.
Right by LAX. Skate back to Inglewood.
Wow.
Get the car, do a gig.
Yeah.
Come back from the gig, make the money from the gig. Pay for the car, skate back, right?
Yeah.
And then I would skate to the Guitar Center in Hollywood. Inglewood to Hollywood. Right?
Yeah.
Ride the bus and all of that. And one of the managers, this guy Mike Nealon, he was like, "You should compete in this competition, this drumming competition."
Yeah.
And I was like, He's like, "No, you can win drums, you can win a car." And I was like, "I win a car."
Right. Like.
Where's the paper?
Right.
So I signed up.
Yeah.
And I competed, and it's over 5,000 drummers across the country. And,
That's
based
amazing.
on your points, you can still win like the preliminary, but your points take you to the next level. But each time, I just felt like, I feel like, you don't have to devalue someone for it to be your turn.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so for me, I was
I
like,
love that.
these guys are good, guys. Like I literally would say, okay, guys, these guys are good, but they can't need a car like I need a car.
Yes.
And I need a car that
the motivation was different.
Yeah. So even when you ask like what is my drive, like those are different moments where I'm like, that's my drive. They're good. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
I don't even want to take anything away from them and their skill, but
That's
it's just my
good.
turn. And so I am the first female to make it to the regionals, the finals, and they don't do it anymore, but it's 28 years. And I won a car.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool. On to my little gig. You know? And it was that,
I love that.
But it was okay, what can I bring to the competition
Absolutely.
to set myself apart? But that was always there early on
Right.
in childhood to like, okay, how can I express myself through this
Yes.
instrument? It's just an instrument. So
Absolutely.
whether the 3D machine is an instrument, whether the graph paper is an
Yeah.
instrument, a CAD is an instrument, it's like taking that instrument and saying, how can I best express myself through
Exactly.
this to get, you know,
Yeah.
get the results.
Yeah.
But that also gave me national visibility. It put me
Yeah.
before like all of the drum companies. So I was immediately exposed to endorsements and,
Yeah.
you know, that sort of thing. And companies that were like, she's going to be leading.
That's good.
She's
Yeah.
she's a leader.
Yeah.
She's coming.
Yeah.
So,
That's good.
but again, I could only do that by being good.
Absolutely.
I have to be excellent. And then even for me, like you have, you get to a point in the career, I've gotten to a point in my career, and I have drum techs. And they set my drums up for me, and I just come to sound check and kind of tweak it, you know. But I don't ever have to carry my drums anymore. I don't have to carry my drums anymore.
That's
But I
good.
have to work to that
you
point,
have to work.
right?
Yep.
But even as a woman, I still know every part. Like if you saw,
Yes.
I designed a 360 cosmic electroacoustic drum
Wow.
set, right? It's 180 electronic and 180 acoustic, right?
Yeah.
And I know how to put every piece together,
Absolutely.
right?
Yep.
And there have been times where I've worked with techs that were just working with me for a television show or something like that, and they're like, they talk at me,
Yeah.
not with me,
Yeah.
right? They talk
Yeah.
at me. And then I end up telling them how to engineer my kit in a way that they've never set up before.
Exactly.
Now I like this upside down and like this here, and this is why I like this. And they're like, huh. And then, can you record these things? Here's my
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah,
and they're just
absolutely.
like, but I treat them with love and kindness.
Absolutely.
And and gratitude.
And gratitude.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's not necessary for me to posture, because a lot of times, you know, we experience men posture, but it's like, that's insecurity.
Yeah. I love the fact that you talk about the voice and having your father and your grandfather's voice, because a lot of our students in this demographic, where they come from, they don't have that. And again, just pointing back to secondary education, when I was in secondary education, a lot of our female students, they were excited to know that there was a program to see a female leader in that role and teaching, but that's all they had. They didn't realize that they could go beyond high school and actually pursue a career in something that they had a dream and a passion for. And so I've experienced a lot of backlash where, you know, I would get, you know, some of the parents to question why I am trying to push them to pursue, because they already had their basic life out of high school set up, right? It wasn't college. It was you gonna come and work for the family business or help mom in the home. And so to be able to, you know, encourage them and empower them and really influence them to pursue that, and sometimes push against the grain and say, hey, this is my dream. I have a life of my own that I have to live. It was a challenge, but I really, you know, because they did not have that voice, they did not have someone expressing to them that they could go beyond high school, or that it wasn't just about, you know, graduating and then becoming a wife and becoming a homemaker. There's more to it. A package, right? It was like thinking outside of that and being able to say, I can still do that, but before I do that, I want to pursue a career. And even I had a student, she did become a wife. And both of them were in my class. Very supportive husband. Both of them were students, but he sacrificed his education so she could pursue. She was going into nursing, but she pursued her nursing degree while he waited. He worked in the industry, in the workforce industry, and then went back and pursued his degree. And so they had a family. They, you know, they did it together, but they had to become each other's advocate because their parents didn't support that. They were like, just work, come into the family business, and they were like, but we can do so much more. I've also spoken to the student who, yes, you see your parents, they have the business, they are entrepreneurs, but they work a lot harder than you would, you know, having a certificate or having a degree. You know, you can come and run in the company versus they're out in the field, which there's nothing wrong with that, but there has to be that level. You have to be able to be well versed in those areas, so that if you come in and you choose to be in the field with them, because my husband does that, he likes being out there in the field and working with them and being hands-on, but then he also has opportunity to sign the checks. And I'm like, yeah, that part. And so you have options, and being able to just express and share that and just expose our students to those options, I think is really important. And my advice would just be for the students is to really just have those hard conversations. I've had a student just recently, he's a student that I mentor, but a lot of his hang up in him even getting through school is the pressure that he feels from his parents. And being able to have that hard conversation allowed him to say, hey, I know where I'm started, I know where we started, I know what the finish line is, but I need some help in between. You guys are giving me everything, but there's some things that I need in between. This is what I have, how can you meet me halfway? Very hard conversation for him to have. He does have the voice of his father to advocate for him, but his dad doesn't know until he brings that to him. And so now he is able to kind of have less pressure on his shoulders and really pursue what he came here to pursue, and finally graduate, because he was falling behind, because he was trying to do things without that order, without that support. And now that he has it, he's like, I have a plan. I know when I'm going to graduate. It's going to be actually earlier than I thought. And I said, it's all about having those hard conversations. And it's also being able to be certain in your identity, not taking away from what your parents have instilled in you, but saying that I take that, but I'm going to build on that. And I'm going to use that to pursue what I love, but also bring you guys up with me, because that's what a lot of them, their hearts are. I want to support my parents. I want to take care of them. So how can I do that? And that's where a lot, especially the female students, I don't want to just help at home. I want to be able to bring money into the home. I want to be able to help you guys so that I can still live my life and pour back. But I'm traveling, I'm doing what I love, but I'm still able to pour back and give to you guys as well. And so just being able to know, be certain in their identity, have that voice that supports them. And it may not be in the home. They may find it through a professor. They may find it through a mentor. They may find it with someone they meet through networking or influence, or whoever it is. It's just being able to connect to those people who are going to speak to that dream and be able to push them to where they need to go. So, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Use the tools that you have, literally taking CAD, putting my patterns in, and being able to design. Not everybody does that. Not everybody knows. Yes. And I had a student, one of our advisors, she brought her kids in on Monday, and I was focused on her son because he's like, I want to do mechanical design, but then her daughter, you know, she was sitting on the side, just very quiet and content. And I asked her what she wanted to do. She said fashion. And I basically showed her how she can take CAD, and there's another program out there that they have, but you can take CAD, you can implement or put in your designs with the measurements and all that, structures of the body and how it fits specifically to, you know, your form, and then design. And so like I said, every area in the industry, for the most part, I've had an opportunity to have my hands in, but just being able to literally look, we gonna make you one. We get you one. That's what we do. I mean, and that's what mechanical design is about too. It's all about finding solutions, solving problems. We are the problem solvers. Like, I'm like, okay, we know the problem, but how are we gonna solve it? And getting there. So yeah,
that's awesome. I mean, there's so many overlaps. You know, when you talk about taking the pattern, inputting the pattern, right? And that's my world in music, and sitting on the Queen's throne. I deal with the patterns. I deal with the rhythm. You know, I deal with the vibrations that at a certain speed become frequency. So everything.
I'm learning so much.
It's actually
off.
Everything is rhythm. A and B flat on the piano is still a frequency moving. It is still a pattern that's been inputted at a certain frequency. And really, when you think about the spectrum of everything that exists, based on how fast or slow it resonates, determines what we call it and how we measure it. You know, so it's moving at one speed. We hear, let's say, a truck, and we hear the engine, right?
Yeah.
The mechanical engineering
Yeah.
of the engine, and then at a certain speed, the pistons are moving, and we hear the
Yep.
we hear a tone, right?
Yeah.
You can take that tone from a truck and play that tone on a piano or on an instrument, and it still goes back to the pattern.
Yes.
You know, and so even to connect the advice, I always say life is rhythm and rhythm is patterns. It is a blend of upbeats and downbeats, delicately interwoven with sound and silence. And that's my mantra, you know?
Yes.
And so as, you know, the students are finding their way, it is a balance. It's a balance of the sound, even of sitting with their parents and saying, Mom, Dad, grandmother, aunt, uncle, you know, whomever is in whomever's care they're in.
Yeah,
Just say,
absolutely.
Here's my voice. So it's that blend of sound. It's also the blend of silence to say, I'm not arguing with you anymore.
Right.
You know, like I'm not arguing about the direction I see that's clear for myself. And sometimes within the family dynamics, especially with the Black and Brown community, a lot of times there are emotional, psychological,
Absolutely.
you know, mental health issues that we have within the community, and then we're trying to exercise this career or this life path for ourselves, and we're having to mind this. So I would even say, like, as advice, mind the manipulation. Because, you know, sometimes there's manipulation within the space where it's like you feel so obligated to help the family that then you know, sort of dial back this part of yourself that is maybe the best expression of yourself at this point, you know, but you're turning that down. And early we were talking about just imposter syndrome and feeling like you don't fit in this space.
Yes.
And sometimes you don't fit in it because no one told you that you do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And if you heard that you did, or if you could see yourself or find yourself in the picture, then you'd be more eligible, like Ashley was saying. She was more eligible than she realized, but it wasn't until she sat among people that were like, she was like, oh wait, I know this. I do know this. Actually, I have more to bring to the table because you didn't consider that or consider that, you know. So that's like advice that I would definitely share in terms of like finding your upbeat and your downbeat and not giving up, right? Not losing yourself when things are great. Because everything hasn't been great, though I've had some experiences. But even like when my dad passed, I actually had to start, though we had this legacy, I had to start my company from scratch. Just because of family dynamics. And it's just like, but I believed in it. And I remember the voice, I had to hang on to that and then not give up and then pivot and restructure because you got to trust people with your business, right? Because it's not just about you doing everything, right? So
delegate.
It's navigating. And what school, and I know Lone Star does, is it helps you get your systems. It helps you get your patterns in place. And then from there, you're building and balancing, you know. But you can go into entrepreneurship, but there's systems that school gives you, like even the work ethic, even the, oh, I didn't prepare, but I have to deliver, so I'm going to pull this all-nighter. Because I have people expecting me. You know,
it's that discipline. It teaches discipline, and just I think about that area of imposter syndrome, and a lot of it is like, you get to a point where like I don't belong. Then when you get there, do I belong? And then, like you said, when you're seated at the table, it's like, well, you're here, but you know, just you don't have that voice. And so being able to really let them know, like she said, like Ashley said, like I'm here, and man, what you're really saying, I can connect with that, but I can bring something to the table. Like I am an asset. Like I literally am the solution. I am the solution, you know? And so it's like having, you know, being able to just expose our students to that. And I love how you brought that up too about Lone Star, is we create just I think about my college experience, and then I think about here at Lone Star. There's such a phenomenal, it's like a map. Like once you're here, I don't want to say we hold their hands, but we really do hold our students' hands from the very beginning all the way until they get ready to walk out that door and start a career. And having opportunities like this, not just with mechanical design, but with welding, HVAC, business, gaming, all these other phenomenal like programs that we have, there are people plugged in every single area, every single program to advise you, to provide you information on financial aid and scholarships, to take care of your basic needs. Like we have our care program, as you know, right now we're having like our food drive. And that's another thing I will speak to that's really big for our demographics, is when the basic needs aren't met, you can't come into a classroom and thrive. And that was the thing growing up, as well as when your basic needs aren't met, you know, and not even from, yes, the financial side, parents were great. We had everything, but they weren't there because they were working all the time. The social side and that family side of being able to kind of guide you, you know, students have the means, but do you have someone walking you through? And so that's where we come in, and we're not just educators. And you know, I say the best of us, which are a lot of us here, excellent, like you speak of excellence. We take this as, I call them my children. Like, y'all, look, you in my class, you're my babies now. Like, you're my children. But being able to take them and say, I'm not just here to teach you content. I really want to know about your life. Spending the first few weeks literally getting in your business and knowing who you are. What do you do outside of this? And understanding that helps me to be able to navigate not just within the classroom structure, but also being able to be flexible, you know, because I was a student and I remember having to work 3 jobs, and I remember having to support a family and not sometimes turning things in on time, but not having the flexibility and someone saying, no, it's it. So being able to even offer that perspective and to say, okay, not to take away from what we do as educators, or to say I'm giving you a pass, but to really say I understand where you are and I don't want to fail you. I want to help you be successful. Now, will I teach you the skills to be disciplined and kind of help you navigate and create a better schedule and get organized? Absolutely. That's what we're here for. But I'm not going to penalize you because you have life happening. Right? Because you know, if that you're like, what? Well, why am I here? What are we doing? Correct. So I think it's so important that you hit on that, but really just being able to embrace, you know, just that voice. And even when we think about workforce, I think that there are a lot of misconceptions around that as well when it comes to, and again, this is a new area for me, so. What I've just experienced is just the thought of the inconsistency. So if you don't have the certificate, how can you move up? Do you have the skill set? And so what we offer is saying, yes, we are the solution to give you that certificate, and even to the point, the thought or the idea of going into companies and saying, we offer this CAD certificate. We know that your people probably need this level of certification in order to be able to be promoted or even get into this job role. So why don't you just bring everybody over? We can teach a class and get them certified. Or you have someone who just needs to be refreshed. You have the 60-year-old who has been in the industry, but things change. Technology and these programs change every year. You got a new version of it coming out for like every week. So having to refresh yourself in that and being able to offer that, I think, helps those who are in the industry break down those misconceptions. Breaking down the thought that someone who is 60-year-old can't keep up with someone who is 20, 30, I looked at my dad, old school. He got his career started just like good old boy system. And he worked for Lockheed Martin. And he said, I had to go back to school to take some courses just to keep up with these young guys who were coming in who knew not even half of what I knew, but because they had the degrees, I had to show proof that I could be able to, to deliver. And so just learning that from him, I was like, wow, how do we break out of that? How do we speak to that? And so it's just saying, hey, come on in, we'll accept you, and we're going to teach you so you can do what you love and be great about it and be great in it, so to speak. So yeah.
And I think one of the other things that you mentioned, and sometimes you don't think about it when you're in it, but even just maximize the moment. I always look at it like life is not happening to me. It's happening with me, right?
Yeah.
And so each situation that I'm in, even if it's not optimal,
Yeah.
I'm always looking at like, how can I make the best of this, right?
Yes.
And so you said, you know, you were working at Bed Bath & Beyond.
Yeah.
But from that, it put you in a commercial environment, it put you in sales, and it still gave you something that you're applying even now, right?
Yeah.
So wherever they are in their process, it's important for them to know, like, that is with you.
Yeah.
Like, these experiences are with you and they're part of you, and how can you, even if you're trying to choose a job, in the meantime, think about it like, how can whichever job I choose serve the rest of the future of me, the rest of me, that sort of thing, you know? So that's also just something for our students to consider too.
Yeah,
you know?
that's good. So we know that mechanical design can go into many different industries. We talked a little bit about production. We talked how it can be in fashion, obviously architecture and engineering, but let's take it, since we're on architecture and engineering, let's go a step further and just kind of talk about how you plug into that realm and how you can actually see mechanical design working in what you do within the construction industry.
Yeah, I see it everywhere, literally, like from the music industry, you know, the staging, you know, my riser where the drums are, television production. There's so many areas, the lighting rigs. And there's adaptive design, like there's so many levels of design, right? And the mechanical expression, whether it's like a new design, whether it's taking something that's already been created and making it better. You know, so like, how can we be more efficient? How can we even have a steady cam, that there's design and there's mechanical design in the television and the camera being able to move, you know, in that sort of way. So I've seen it in that space. And in the spaces that I've been in, like when I was playing with Beyonce, I would also sit with the you know, the cinematographers and photographers and just pick their brain on like, how are they dealing with the cameras, how are they dealing with the editing, how are they seeing, you know, what the producer is doing in relationship to the music, to the staging, to the lighting, to, you know, so it was just all of that to capture these shots or this content, you know? Absolutely. So being exposed to that and then saying, okay, how can I also create my own voice, right? So taking the information, taking, you know, the formal experience through school, you know, and saying, okay, how can I create a blueprint? Right?
There you go. Do-do-do.
Rock and roll.
We did it.
Second blueprint.
Puns
intended. But taking the blueprint and, you know, and establishing infrastructure in a house of my own. And so one of the things that I'm launching, which of course, you know, the Lone Star family is invited to. Happy birthday, by the way. Is, I'm launching 13 acres, a 13-acre estate called Oasis Royale. Right, I'm really excited about it. And I nearly lived in Paisley Park working with friends. And so I saw him create this infrastructure, this community, this, you know, and so I'm taking these experiences and I'm saying, okay, what's my blueprint, right? What's my fingerprint that looks like no one else's, right? And it has these swirls and character that defines me, that expresses me, if you will. So on the Oasis Royale, it will house the Queen Cora International and Education Performing Arts Center. So I'm really excited because I'm also taking my Building Simple shipping container and development company, and I'm marrying. So the facility will be housed with luxury shipping containers. There'll actually be lodging on the facility, so people can come and do concerts, but then they can also stay, and then there are recording suites, right? So you can come 2 weeks before your concert and you can do podcasts. You can record your album. You can do voiceovers. You can do all of that, right? And then as I say, it's a blend of upbeats and downbeats. Delicately interwoven with sound and silence. On the Oasis, there's also business retreat, but wellness retreat. So you can come and unplug, get a massage, you can get counseling, right?
That's so good.
Because life is happening, like we've talked about. And so it's finding that balance, but basically taking all the things that I care about and putting it in this oasis, you know, is what I'm doing. So I'm excited to even see how we can bring the students and have them, you know, have competitions, and that's where the design festival can be, or that's where the awards can be. distribute it, or even having the students be a part of the development, because there are some people that I will be partnered with, and we'll announce that over the Thanksgiving weekend, that are significant in design and development. Daryl McKissick is one of the co-owners of McKissick and McKissick.
Yes.
And she and her sister are designing. They have a, I think $17 billion portfolio in development and design, and including the African American Museum.
I just have like all these heart emojis around me right now. I'm like, oh my gosh,
so,
this is amazing.
It's that opportunity for the students to literally plug in and just observe, or bring their resources and their thoughts and innovation, which is also a part of the design. There's something that exists, but imagine if everybody in the 20s were like, no, this is great, like these are walking is great, no, we love walking, and nobody thought, but suppose we can move faster, and made a bike or made a car, and then we say, okay, no, okay, enough with the cars, and then somebody says, but suppose it could go faster than 20 miles per hour.
Next level.
And then you think of something like somebody, when you think about it, like suppose you could walk around mid-air, like 30,000 feet in the air, right? And be able to like go to the restroom and eat in the air, standing up. You'd be like, who does that, right? But that's what we do on airplanes.
You do.
We stand up 30,000 feet in the air, we eat, you know what I mean? And so we need the innovation. We need that part of the design. We need the minds to think about how we could take what we have and take it to the next level, but still stay connected to humanity, not lose ourselves so much.
I love that. I love that. I love it, because that is exactly like when you speak about innovation, that is what we foster, and that is what I think, again, we try to just build on, that you have something to bring to the table, and it's that innovation, that special thing that you're just passionate about, and being able to be put in places where you can use that. I think about not just the innovation component, but being able to network, but also compete, being able to showcase those areas of innovation and the process that it takes to get there. And just really having people who are there, not just to foster, but to support you in doing it, and to cheer you on, or to even just say there are spaces created holistically to pour into the whole man, not just this one area of my career, but to really nurture and help with that healing process. Because again, we talk mental illness, mental health, I should say, is really big in our cultures or in our demographics. The minority, we don't really talk about that a lot. We're giving voice to it more now, but that's something that we don't talk about often. And so to be able to create a space for all of that to come together, and you to be able to express yourself artistically, to be innovative, but then to also take a break and focus on your health and wellness, like that is amazing. That's phenomenal. And I'm just like bubbling over, because it's something that you dream about, and you're like, wow, somebody's actually doing that. So it's thinking about with the students, partnership. How can they partner? Whether they're, what our demographics of in their 30s, or whether it's a new student coming out of high school who has been in competition and they know the ropes to that, being able to showcase, or someone who's coming back and had a dream, but just kind of, was deferred and saying, oh, wait, wow. But it's not, I'm still eligible, so let me get plugged in. So I love that you're creating the space and even the voice around that, and just the idea of that innovation, shipping containers. I'm like, so like, yes, and yes. So I appreciate just your heart, not just for the arts, but also for people, and being able to, pour back into the community, and using your gifts and the things that you were exposed to, and being able to share that with the world, and being a forerunner. I say that so much, like being a forerunner, to say it can be done. This is how it's done. And it starts with sometimes just building from the ground up, with that blank slate, and building a blueprint, being able to create the map, for someone to come. And I always talk about that uncharted territory. Like everything you said is like uncharted territory, but you are the example that I think our students, my children, my daughter needs to see to be able to know it can be done. We talk about just not just being that generational, breaker, but then the next person to take it and run with it.
Yeah.
That's her. It's like, I've broken it for you, but now you have an example to see how it can be done and done well with excellence.
Yeah.
And it just be all things glorious. Because I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm like just in my feelings right now. So I appreciate you.
Definitely.
I really do.
I'm happy to share. And there are other things that we also have to talk about, which I do talk about, which is just financial literacy.
Yes.
Because part of it is like, you can have work ethic, and make your money, but then it's like, how do you protect it? Like I've learned some things about like infinite banking. It's a whole different level of protecting your money and earning interest, and that way you're working smart and not hard.
Absolutely.
And also being able to say no, or to be able to say it's time.
Yeah.
Because I've been a part of situations that people were like, who would leave that, right?
Yeah.
But at a point where it was clear that it was time, then I had to walk away from some spaces that were the apex for some people. I've worked amazing time with Prince, but there was a season I was just like, it's time. And so I actually withdrew from playing with Prince. Right? And what's after that? But a second Super Bowl was what ended up coming after that. Like, I did one, and then it could feel like, but we reached that glass ceiling. But there are more. There is more of the balance of you. Talking about success with Ashley earlier. But like, what is success? Like, am I going to stay until I'm miserable? Am I going to stay until I'm sick? You know what I mean? Like, am I going to be bullied or like whatever it is? Like, wherever they are in their path, our students and that sort of thing. So it's also to say that no is a complete sentence. Or no, as she said, no without an explanation. That's okay. Or yes without explanation. Like, this is actually working for me.
Yeah.
So being a forerunner, it doesn't mean that it's always excellent.
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean that it's always amazing or heartfelt.
Yeah.
It's like, what the heck just happened? Like when you're trying to be your best, but it's also like, but keep going.
Yes.
Or take a break. And then keep going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just finding again the upbeat, the sound in the silence, and not getting lost. Like, I say upbeats and downbeats because in the high points of life, that's when we can lose ourselves, right?
Absolutely.
And just like, don't you know who I am? But then comes the downbeat, and you can lose yourself in the downbeat too.
Yeah.
So it's like, as long as the pattern is set, right?
Yeah.
Then there's room to like find your way, you know. So that's what's important. So I'm excited that we were able to have this time.
I am. Truly,
you.
I love it. Thank you. I'm just really excited. I'm excited for what's about to. I'm expectant. I know it's going to be just all things amazing, and just the community that you're going to serve, and those hearts that you're going to actually just, bring into this is going to be. I'm in awe. I really am in awe. Yeah, so thankful. And just last thing just one thing to point on is like that dream. What I heard you say, and I really appreciate you bringing this to light, is that you have a dream, but your dream is kind of like you have this one thing in that dream that you want to accomplish, but then it begins to open up so many other things that you didn't even know was a dream. You didn't know that you could reach. And so it's like just taking that one thing and just expanding and creating more and more and more. And then you look at your life and you're like, wow, like, look at this. Like, look at all the areas that I've actually reached and been able to influence, but also made a mark and made a path for the next person to come in. So I love that. Yeah. Like, this is like the best. It's like the best birthday gift. She didn't even know. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then my students, I'm like, just to think about them, just the ones who need to hear this, because again, you're students, and you do, like you say, they're like, what do they say? The ebbs and flow of life. It's like ups and downs, and totally. What do you do? Like, how do you handle that? And really also embracing those seasons of stillness.
Right.
Like for you to say that is so major, especially coming out of a pandemic where it's like go, 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 because we've been still for so long. That doesn't necessarily mean that.
Yeah.
Because there's an area of preparation. There's a process to getting to the next step and the next level. So yes,
It's like
yes,
the germinating
yes,
stage where you can plant something and it's deep and it's amazing.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it's like
the process.
the largest, oak tree is encased in an acorn.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
And so you place that underground, in a darker space, and it might be a cold space, it might be an isolated space, right?
Yes.
But an acorn that's going to be as great as it can be needs room.
Yes.
It needs space because as the roots branch out, it doesn't need to conflict with all these other things around it. And it grows, it brings shade to people. You can sit down and enjoy it, that sort of thing. But it is that germinating stage.
Yes.
And sometimes you can be watering it and talking to it and putting sun on it.
Right.
But it's like, it's not time yet.
Yeah, because the roots have to go out and grow out deep before you see it come up above ground. So, you gotta have strong roots. Solid, you gotta be solid.